Morning, Shirley. Nice to see
Hi.
you again. Haven't had
Yes.
a chat for a while.
Yeah.
Well,
Hi.
I thought that seeing we've got a whole new situation facing our world, we could just in some way bring a little bit of certainty to homeschooling moms whose worlds have been changed. Also, new moms to homeschooling, whether it be because of COVID-19 or whether it be because they've made their decision based on other factors. And just encourage parents that this is not the end of the world, and it's an amazing opportunity for us to do different things. And I thought we could chat through some of those issues, and then also just bring in some ideas around how Charlotte Mason, a woman long gone, but her legacy remains on, can aid and assist parents in this time.
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is what I always say to all new homeschooling parents, and this would now apply to people who are temporarily having their children at home, is that you shouldn't try and replicate the classroom in your home. Don't try and do school at home, and don't try and be the teacher. Your kids will be very quick to tell you, but mom, you're not the teacher. That's not how we do it. So I would say don't even try and do that. But as you say, enjoy this time where you have the time to embrace a whole range of other activities, and let your children discover that there are other ways to learn. Learning doesn't just happen in a classroom and from a textbook. I know you want to
Absolutely.
talk about the Charlotte Mason ideas, so let's share that, because a lot of homeschooling moms, although they have a curriculum and they know what they're doing, suddenly extramurals are cancelled and all sorts of social events are cancelled, and we're all at home with a lot more time on our hands than usual. Let's talk about some ideas to do in that time.
Yeah, so the first one that always comes to mind with Charlotte Mason is time in nature. I was sharing with you just before we started chatting for the recording that my son and I took our dogs for a nice long hike in the mountain early, and there had to be 50% more people on the mountain, which is encouraging.
Yeah.
It's lovely to see families get out and do this, and it should be a natural part of our life, getting into green spaces, exercising with our kids, instead of whatever else they would be doing, running around maybe on a Saturday morning, filling shopping trolleys, kids sitting in front of TVs, that sort of thing. It just was absolutely fantastic to see them. But in the sort of day-to-day doing of what Charlotte Mason would say, I'm going to actually read a quote, if I can quickly just find it here. She said, "We are all meant to be naturalists, each in his own degree, and it is inexcusable to live in a world so full of marvels of plant and animal life and to care for none of these things." So in the time where kids are in school or at extramurals in the afternoon, these things they miss these things. And we have such an amazing variety of plant life and animal life that they can actually go and store up that information by themselves, by just exposing and putting them in that environment. And there is nothing nicer than packing a picnic basket and going and finding a safe green space, and spending the time there with your kids. Older children can take along their phones. If they've got Instagram accounts, they can take photographs, put them on Instagram, share a little bit of information. Younger kids can take journals, can draw in them, and mom can actually just get out of the house, get out of the, like, what are we going to do? Mom, can we do this? Can we do that? And everybody just chill and have a nice time outdoors.
It would actually be lovely to see some photos like that on social media of
Oh
people
yeah,
saying, hey, this is what we're doing instead of the usual, and just some positive stories, because there is so much negativity at the moment. A person almost doesn't want to read the news.
yeah,
The other thing that I always think we should do more of, because I think you can never do too much of it, is reading aloud with our children. um, Reading aloud to them, even if they're teenagers, it's such an enriching activity, because we learn so much from the lives of other people and people who lived in other times and other places. And when you've shared those stories, then you've shared that experience together, and it builds your connection and builds your relationship with your kids. and you're creating memories that are going to stay with them forever. And I think with all of us, we're going to all look back on this time where the world just was turned upside down, and we're living in a unique time of history. And I wonder what our children are going to take away from this. Is it going to be a mom who's panicking and watching social media all the time and stressed? Or is it going to be a mom who's going to say, well, let's make hay and, enjoy this time together?
Absolutely. And then Charlotte Mason, again, she even is able to tell us what kind of things we should be reading to our children. So without trying to be too prescriptive, as homeschoolers, we get quite sneaky with filling the gaps for our kids. If you've got a child who only wants to read Popular Mechanics magazine, then it's up to you to try and find those other lovely things to furnish their mind with ideas. She's got a quote that says, "Imagination does not stir at the suggestion of the feeble, much diluted stuff that is too often put into children's hands." So some resources that parents can use are the 1,000 Good Book List. It's an amazing website where they have actually more than 1,000 now books. It's a classical Christian education, but those are just classics, and they're for all ages. Then obviously, or Sunlight curriculum, you can go and take a look online at their book titles and get them from the library. Just remember to sanitize your hands in between the library books. And then you've got obviously, if you're homeschooling and using footprints, I mean, our books are just amazing thought idea beds for activity and discussion. And to set up a time when you can see that your kids, if you've got more than one, starting to rub a little bit against each other. Come on, let's make a cup of tea and sit down and read a book. Preschoolers, there are so many books in the library. Bill Peters and what is her name? Sally Hughes, I think it was.
Yes.
Those were
Shirley Hughes.
Shirley Hughes, that's right.
Yeah.
Were some of our favorite books to read, and they just kind of made the kids want to go out and find their own rocks if they were reading a Alfie and Annie Rose story. And it's just truly reading to kids all ages just gives them ideas in which to go and execute on their own.
Absolutely. You popping out quotes, and when you said that last one, it reminded me of one too that is so applicable in this time, and it was that boredom is the mother of creativity. Mm-hmm. And too often we want to just pop our kids in front of a screen or prescribe things to keep them busy. And sometimes we need to just let them be and let them mom on board and see what they come up with. And, at a time like this, they might discover that they like cooking or baking, or they get out the art stuff and they start being creative. But don't be too quick to line up a whole bunch of activities. Sometimes just let them be the ones that are thinking about stuff, because I think in our world today, children have less time and things are just thrown at them to do, and it's good for them to have to think up a game, think up an activity, think up something to occupy themselves and use that free time productively.
Absolutely. So you mentioned art, and I was going to, we obviously know that art galleries aren't a possibility at the moment, but most of the national galleries around the world have opened up online portals where people can go and view art. Charlotte Mason also has a very strong emphasis on picture study, which is great, and it doesn't have to be done formally. You can have screenshot pictures and then have it on a cycle on your desktop when your computer is resting. You can leave art books open on your counter. And what we used to do when our kids were little, we used to have one afternoon a week called a poetry and tea afternoon, and we used to incorporate our picture study into that. Some children wanted to draw, or try and replicate that art, and others didn't. There's another website for parents, and we'll put this in the comments below. Another website is Practical Pages, Nadine is a long-term homeschooling mom, and she's got an amazing website where she has all sorts of worksheets and art, what is
Art
the word I'm looking for?
appreciation books.
Art appreciation stuff.
Yes.
So, those resources are there, and it's just a little bit of digging and you can find them, but we will put them down there. But the poetry and tea, if we can just skip onto that, was one of our most favorite things, and it incorporates a lot of stuff that you just said, like we would bake something. One child would be on a roster and they would bake something for the tea, and another child would make the tea and lay the table. And then we would sit down and munch away and sip our tea, and I would read poetry to them. And it was one of those really sweet memories. Now that my kids are all grown and doing their own thing, was one of the sweet memories that I hold. So I haven't checked with them, but it was one of those really nice mommy feelings. And that can be done in a variety of different ways, but just stopping in the hustle and bustle is actually such a privilege. So we did it out of choice. Now we have a necessity to stop and just be and enjoy one another's company and do interesting things like that.
I also have a tea story. So my mom has quite a nice fine bone china tea set. And a couple of times we got that out and we sat down, and I realized that in our slapdash lifestyle, we always just make tea and coffee in mugs. And my mother used to always serve tea with a tray and a teapot and a milk jug and a sugar bowl, and we actually had to learn the etiquette of how to pour tea and serve tea, and it was really quite a little cultural event for us too. So another precious mommy memory. I'll also check with the kids if it meant anything to them. But reading poetry also is just a way of enriching children with absolutely rich descriptive language. And if you choose poems that are really suitable for children, that were written for children, they can be a lot of fun. You could even learn a line or two a day and get the children to recite them. And something I did recently was I assigned my children to just on one day, this was for a language arts activity during our homeschooling, to write down some words describing, it was the night sky, but it could be the green forest or whatever it is that you've done in nature. And then a day or two later, I said, okay, you've got these lovely words. How about trying to write 4 lines of a poem yourself? And I was actually amazed at what came out. It might not be, going to ever be published, but it was a fun activity. So you can stretch yourselves and do things that you wouldn't normally have the time to do. And it really can be, the kids can be amazed. They might discover new talents that they didn't even realize that they had.
Definitely. Yeah, and then obviously other practical things. Our kids, particularly if you have a very busy household, or whether they've been in school all their years, one of the biggest things that falls through the gaps is just practical life skills. Having the time in the morning to make your bed, to help with the chores, feeding animals, all that sort of thing. And all of that is learning. We have this wrong perception of learning happens at a desk away from the home for 8 to 10 hours a day. And then kids end up one day having to run their own homes and flounder because they don't know what it means to meal plan, to make food, to the amount of time spent in cleaning up after a meal. And those are actually wonderful things for kids to do. So, switch off the Xbox, switch off the TV, and teach and see that as an opportunity to teach your children something that when school term starts up again, or when all the extramurals start again, that they've actually got that as something to build on, a foundation.
Yeah, to add to that, the children aren't going to see doing those chores as wonderful activities, of course. And that is the thing, that people who homeschool permanently are forced to face those character issues and those relationship issues. And for every child, even if you're in the temporary homeschooling group, this is the time to talk to children about being part of the family team and about being diligent and about being responsible. And these are lessons that your children aren't really going to learn from the pages of textbooks. But now is the time to build that into them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And anything else that you can think of that we can use to encourage homeschoolers and temporary, I like what you said, temporary homeschoolers.
I think there's a lot of people that are stressing about their businesses. And I think this is also a great time, without burdening children, to teach them about things like debt and money, and to start thinking about entrepreneurship. How could a person make money? You know, what about people who lose their jobs or who aren't able to work and earn as much as before? And to start thinking creatively, whether it's going to be used now or not, it's things that they're going to remember for a long time. And when they go through ups and downs in the future, they're going to remember the lessons that they've learned from what grown-ups have said during this time. So it's almost a caution to not so panic into their lives, but to say, you know, the economy does have ups and downs caused by all kinds of things, not normally as extreme as this. And, you know, you should always try and be prepared for these ups and downs as best as you can, by not having excessive debt and by having various income streams perhaps, or, you know, each family will have their own philosophy of what a person should do, but it's maybe a good time to start thinking about that. And I think many in our generation, because we were only schooled, the school system didn't really teach us that, and we've had to learn it as adults and learn it ourselves, and we can pass it on to our kids. And even parents who haven't learned it, now is a good time to start thinking these things through.
Absolutely. And also to determine what makes a person secure. If we think back to the terrible water crisis that we had in 2016, 2017, you know, does having rain tanks make you feel secure? And if so, why does it feel that? And what can we do right now? It's obviously an amazing opportunity just to take something that's right in front of us. What is health? How do we promote better health so that we aren't at risk?
Yes, I've been
Also
thinking
compassion.
that, sorry to interrupt you, the media to me has been very quiet about how people should build their immune systems. Everyone's saying wash your hands and use sanitizers, but I haven't heard very many people telling people what they can do to eat right and use supplements and build their immune system naturally, so that if they get a virus, any virus, their body can actually weather it and their immune system can overcome it. So now's a good time to talk with your kids about how you build your immune system.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then also the other thing that I realized, you know, we've got some people in our family that are immune compromised, and also having, you know, 4 elderly parents. So it's learning about compassion. So this is not just about me protecting me and my little space. This is about us as a community as a whole. How we can walk and live with other people compassionately, you know, in a me first kind of world. What are we teaching our children? And why are we saying to them, well, let's not go to gym, even if the gym is open, because, you know, there's people at risk there. So there is so many life learning things. There's so many sort of education, if we want to kind of box everything. But besides for obviously the pain and suffering that is going along with the situation we face at the moment, this is an amazing time and an opportunity for families to learn and to grow. And yeah, so well, we hope that our little chat has kind of encouraged moms in that way. But I think that's a good start.
It's been a good exercise for me too. So thanks for the chat, Wayne. Bye.
Great. Bye.